Hey guys, my name is Joseph Lucero. This is Spencer White. What we're going to show you right here is some movements that I think are very important for a strongman to know and to have correct form with. It'll be the squat, the deadlift, and the overhead press. So we'll look at them, analyze them, and tell you guys kind of some ways we can fix them. Okay?
Okay, so first thing with the squat, what we're looking at right here is the descending motion, some other parts of it as well, maybe technique and bar placement. So right here, what I notice is it's pretty good for the most part. His hips are going backwards, but it does look like he is a little forward. We're going to pause this here just in a second so we can talk about it. So if you can kind of see from here, it kind of looks like he's leaning forward, his back is arched a little bit, and his knees might be having like an internal shift, which we'll notice from the front view. So right here, I kind of marked up the page. Again, curve in the back, looks like he's leaning forward. His knees, I do believe, when we see this next angle, that they're going internally, and his feet are popping outward. So I do think there's some things we need to work with regarding his efficiency with his hips and as well bar placement. You can even notice it on this video. His bar is way too high, so it makes him kind of fall forward a little bit. I think we need to strengthen the hips by using some low bar movements and then identifying some other things as well. You see the knees coming inward. If you pause the video and look back, they are coming inward, and his feet are very much outward. I think it was injury, due to some injuries, he felt more comfortable this way, but the more his toes are out, the more we're going to have some issues with that as well, especially in strongman. You have to be so athletic and have more neutral position. So we're going to fix the bar placement, the internal knee shift, and then his toes as well to kind of put him in a better placement to where he can engage himself, maybe push the bar backwards, get some more hip strength, and go from there. So now we're going to move on to the overhead press. A big thing I noticed about his overhead press is watch his upper body. It's still upward. There's no hinge in the hips, and a lot of the movements taking action in the knees. So like right here, his upper body's perpendicular to the ground. His knees are pushed outward. He's taking the load quite a bit in his knees, and he's not really in a good position to be athletic with this movement. So that's something we definitely want to work on and get him fixed. So we want to push the hips back, kind of have a more of a hinge to generate more movement, because we want to incorporate triple extension, which will be the second part of this series. But with triple extension, we want to extend at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. He really gets it in the knees and ankles. He's just missing the hips. That's really a big area that we want to fix and work on. So now if you look from the front view, again, his foot placement's more outward. So it's causing a little bit of a biomechanical issue to where we can't be efficient with our overhead press. Like we talked about, we want to make sure that we are getting triple extension. Right now, we're only getting extension from the knees and the ankle joint. You can kind of see right here how it looks like the knees collapse a little bit, and it's kind of just not good displacement of weight on the heels of his body. And there's actually a gap from the bar to his chest. I know that if you use a log or axle press, that'll change a lot, but if there's that gap, there has to be more tension at the bottom of the movement, which might make his press just a little more hesitant. So that's something we want to identify too. But nonetheless, again, the hips, there's no fold, there's no hinge. And then with the knees, we want to really work on getting them outward. So working the glute medius and gaining strength there as well. And then foot placement too. That outside foot placement isn't really letting him put weight in the areas that he needs to. It might actually be causing why the hips aren't working as well and taking the load as much. So we want to work all these small things we can. Now the deadlift, he is a good puller, but as you can see, the first thing that rises is his butt. And then as he continues forward, he does show fatigue to where it's just extension at the knees. And there's a big curve in his back, we'll see right here. So as you notice, he's actually looking downward too. So he's looking downward, there's a curve in the back, and when he's using his leg drive on the deadlift, that's the first thing that almost locks out before his hips do. So then he's taking quite a bit of the load in his hips and his lower back. So right here, again, curve, extension of the knees, and then you can also see that his head is really far ahead of the bar. So, how weight is displaced on his body, especially his lower back, is going to have a big issue on this. So we want to kind of get him to go backwards, use more hip strength, which we'll talk about here in a minute on how to fix that problem. So now we're going to look at the front view of the movement. Again, we're seeing the same things from before. It's just nice to look at all angles when you're prescribing things for a client. So at the beginning of the lift, he's looking downward. His knees are almost locked out, like we said, and then his hips are still lagging. So he's got a curved back, and he could cause himself to have some issues moving forward with some heavier weights. So these aren't things that we're trying to mock the lifter with. We're just trying to make them better and trying to pinpoint so that they're more aware of that. Because if you can show a visual like this to a client and show them all the little cues they're missing, that's the difference between programming and coaching. Programming, I can copy and paste and send stuff to people all the time. But if I coach and give them feedback, then that's what's going to make them a better athlete. And that's what sticks with athletes too. Being coached, they want to be coached, they want to be challenged, and they want to be better. These small things, although they seem like they're light, they will change things in the future for your lifting. So how do we fix this? One thing I like to do is wall-facing squats. As you can see, I don't know if I do it in this video, but another video is coming up. Yep, I take that step back. It's a challenge. You're going down the wall, and you can see I have a flat back because I'm promoting a big chest, but now I'm displacing more weight on my hips, so I can see more growth and development in that phase. Now, to add to the rigor, you want to make sure you can add a weight in the front. That might actually make it easier for the client, so I would suggest doing body weight and then the goblet squat to add more weight. But again, we're just promoting good movement pattern and more displacement on the hips. Now, for something to help with the overhead press, do it this way. See, that was really hard for me to do. You got to get close to the wall, big chest, hold the kettlebells in that racked position. This is really going to transfer over to the overhead press. You'll never overhead press from a parallel position like this, but this movement pattern, this practice can make you better and better and better. Another thing too right here is you can go ahead and work the overhead aspect of it, so you can squat and then overhead press. Something that Spencer had an issue with is when he overhead pressed, he would let his face stare at the bar, so he'd be behind the bar. He wants to push his body through the bar, so as you can see right here, when you overhead press, push your head through and put yourself in a better place biomechanically. He had that internal knee issue, so I like this wall sit with isometric hold. You're pushing the knees out, so your hands are there to force your knees in, but you're going to force them out. And doing this for 3 sets of 10 seconds will help stimulate and engage that glute medius to where you can, again, promote correct movement and activity. Now, all I'm doing here is showcasing that at the beginning of this movement, I have a high bar, so it's up on the top part of my traps, but I want to actually push it downward. So watch this part. I move it downward. What's happening is when you move it downward, you're pushing the bar closer to your hips. And the closer the bar is to your hips, the more that your hips are going to be engaged. A high bar squat's going to make you work more quad dominant. Low bar right here with a seated position is going to make you sit and rest, and then coming out of the hole, your hips have to be super strong to finish the movement. So I like this to help him get a little bit better with his movement pattern. Front squats help with the overhead press and, causing that hinge position. So we like to see it here. I do it with my arms crossed, but then I also promote it with a racked position because now we're talking about more specificity with the overhead press. I know that a log is a neutral grip. I know that the axle is a racked position, but even doing this with light weights, maybe on like a deadlift day, just do this to kind of work through it and work on your flexibility with the bar, will help tremendously transfer over. And then these last two movements, the Z press, this is one of the last two movements. I just like this. It's not really, I'm guessing, a corrective movement, but it is promoting that head positioning to where you can kind of follow through with the bar and just make you better with the movement pattern. And then band resisted pull throughs. I like this because your hip extension isn't being directly engaged with gravity unless we're doing it from a horizontal resistance like this. So that can really help you with finishing your deadlift and even the triple extension of the overhead stuff. This is again part 1 of 3. If you want more information, check out my website, harvestingstrength.com. Looking to make more moves, connect with more people, check out the content, merchandise, and all those things, and leave some comments below. Let's get a conversation going and do big things. All right, thanks, guys.